All right, we're live. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the gaming special of the Anarchist's Guide to the Universe. We're really excited about tonight's show. We've got a bunch of space enthusiasts who are also a bunch of gaming nerds, and including myself. I've been gaming since I was 5 years old, so I'm really excited to be talking about all the different video games that I've played, and I know that everybody else is as well. I'm going to introduce everybody. I'm going to start from left to right, and we all know Carolina Garza, who is my co-host. Hi.
Hey.
And we have a special guest and my good friend, James Ridgers, who also works for Blizzard. Then we have my other good friend, Jason Major, who is Lights in the Dark, and also a game enthusiast, and I think he's gaming right now.
Oh, hey, I'm sorry. I didn't. I was just busy playing Retro Sonic the Hedgehog on my original Game Gear. Let me put this down so we can get going here.
How convenient! Thank you.
All right, we're good.
And then we have Jerome Strach, who has a long history of gaming and working well, I'm going to let him tell you because I don't want to steal his thunder. He gets mad when I do that. Then we have Kurt Godwin, who is a self-proclaimed casual.
Yes.
Filthy casual.
I know.
Yes.
It's terrible.
And the first thing that we're going to be talking about, which is going to be going to Kurt and Jason, and it's going to be Dungeons and Dragons, going to the beginning. So I'm going to throw it over to you guys.
Wow. So Jason, I know that you have far more experience with D&D than I do. I'll start with how I got into it and what little I dabbled with it. So.
And I'll fill in the rest because I'm also like you, Kurt. I'm a casual. I never really got to that next level, but I've been playing for a very long time, and I currently play now. So we can talk about that too.
So my cousins, who were 5 to 8 years older than I was, they were big into D&D. This was in the early 80s. And I would go over to their house, watch them play. They would build their character sheets, and one of them was a really talented dungeon master. And as a younger kid who looked up to the cousins, I wanted to be part of that. I wanted to take part in the game. So they would hand me some character sheets, and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what charisma was, dexterity, and all this stuff. I just saw this cool game that everybody was, playing there at the house, and so I joined in with them, and I didn't do much of anything with it, but I probably played for maybe up to a year with them. Really got too deep, but no, I enjoyed it. I should probably get back into it, but as is the case with most things in life, life gets in the way.
Mm-hmm. I guess I can pick up from there. I got into playing when I was in college. I tried it a couple. And you can almost go some different routes on what we're talking about here for those of you who are just stepping in for the conversation. But I tried it a couple of times in high school, and I didn't really like it. But once I got to college, it was something that I was a lot more comfortable with. And of course, we're talking about playing Dungeons and Dragons and finding other people who are also, kind of. All right, college for me was the mid-'90s, and where I grew up, and it maybe this was kind of universal, but to say that you played Dungeons and Dragons, that was almost like social suicide.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not like it is now. Kids, if you're under 25, you're living in a very special time now because you can do these types of things, and nobody, is really going to give you that sideways look of either, oh wow, I should probably give you a wedgie right now.
Is that because nerd culture is,
yeah,
geek much more acceptable?
Geek chic, it's okay. And from Big Bang Theory, like the poster that's up there back at your home, to just STEM. The idea of even calling something STEM, it didn't exist back in the 80s and 90s. It was just, that's what geeky people did. So anyway, when I was in college, I met a guy who he had a group of friends he played with, and we became friends. So he kind of, not so much took me under his wing, but I started hanging around with him, and then he mentioned, hey, would you be interested in this? Because I was clearly into comic books and sci-fi and fantasy and all this other stuff, and I was like, yeah, I guess so. You're not gonna tell anybody, are you? And then the next thing we're playing in garages, and we're playing in our parents' basements, and some of our friends had they had their own place at the college that they were going to down in southern Rhode Island. So we would drive down there, and what's neat is that I'm still friends with these guys now, and people have families, some of them have kids, and we're still getting together and we're still playing, and it's something that we do every week. It's whether it's Wednesday night, we just shifted it to Thursday night, but it's something for a bunch of friends to get together, share time, talk about movies, have pizza and beer, just like we've done for the past 20 years.
Right.
So that's what's really cool about it. Besides the fact that we're doing all this fantasy stuff and playing geek games and things like that, but for the most part we're just enjoying hanging out. We're not a bunch of sports fans, and so this gives us the other excuse to get together.
So how often do you get together?
It's every week.
Okay.
So we'll get together for like 3 or 4 hours on now it's a Thursday, but for the longest time it was like a Wednesday night. And we rotate houses. We'd have a whole structure on whose house it was going to be based on the first letters of names. So there's 7 of us that play now. So we have like a whole structure. We call it J. Joe Fenk. And that's a mnemonic, so we can remember. I'm Jay, then there's a Joel, and then there's Fred, Ed, Keith, and Norm. So, or I switched a couple of them, but still, it lets us know, okay, well, today we did Fred's house, so next time is Ed's house, because, he's in the rotation.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
You made a comment about how it's a way for people to get together if you're not into sports or things like that. Do you find the social element of it to be as interesting or more interesting than playing like an MMO online?
I myself am not a fan of multiplayer games in general. And again, I know that's super popular right now. And as soon as it was capable to do that, people were jumping all over it. I'm the introvert. I'm the only child. I like to, pardon the expression, play with myself. I mean, that's just the way I've always played video games. So I don't want to put on a headset and play Call of Duty or something like that against a myriad of people all over the world. Have a bunch of 13-year-olds trash talking me, and that's not my idea of having fun. And some people love it, and some people don't, and I'm one of the few that don't.
No, I'm with you. I'm saying.
Yeah, who wants to be trash talked by 13-year-olds? Like,
I know, right?
That's just baloney.
That was one of the reasons why, and maybe we'll talk about it a little bit more when we get to WoW, but that's why I played the character I did for so long, because it lent itself to playing, without a team.
Right. And okay, so I say I played for, let's see, going back to, I probably started around 1995, so, 20, 21 years. But I had a hiatus when I moved from Rhode Island, where all of my longtime friends were, and I moved to Dallas in 2004, and I lived there for 8.5 years. I obviously I had to stop playing, and I did not choose to go out and find a new group, because I didn't know what I was getting into. I'm not the type that goes into the back room of a gaming store and sits down at a table and goes, okay, I've got a 20th level wizard, and I want to jump into a game. For me, it's about hanging out with the guys that I know, not about going out there and trying to kick a bunch of ass.
So would you have any information or any guidance for people that have said, I might be interested in D&D, but I don't know much about it? Where?
Get your friends together. I mean, that's my thing is make it social. Turn it into something that you do with people that you like to hang out with, and figure. I mean, the rules aren't hard. I shouldn't say that. I've been playing for so long, I can't even tell you. I couldn't even decide if they're hard or not. But pick up a core rule book. I think now they're up to 5th edition. 5th edition, luckily, I believe has kind of fixed itself after the debacle of 4th edition. Personally, we play Pathfinder, which technically is kind of like 3.59. It took everything that was good about D&D 3.5, which is this our Bible, all right, and that's what the core guide looked like back then. And when they switched to the 4th edition, nobody liked it, so a lot of people jumped over to Pathfinder, which kind of continued that story. But I believe that edition 5 is a lot better now. So pick up a core rule book, just read through it. That's going to be your favorite. That's going to be your go-to guide, and just start it up. You can't do it wrong. That's the great thing about D&D. You can't do it wrong.
Cool.
I have a question, and I may have missed it when I ran to go get my dice. How long have you been playing with your current group?
20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, we started like I said, we started in '95. A couple of guys, came and went. We were in college when we started, so one of my, I worked with a couple of guys in the college graphics department. I got a job at my local college, and we would like make the posters and flyers and stuff for all of the campus events. So what was neat was there was this giant table in there that was covered in paper, and when it was our shift, we'd all go in there and just kind of hang out and draw stuff until a work order came in, and then we work on that. But so a lot of times we could like work on our D&D characters while we were waiting for a job to do, and a bunch of us, we were all art students, so our favorite thing to do was draw up character sheets and create our characters. And one of the things that I managed to dig up was some of my old character sheets. I used to love to like design character sheets. That was one of my first characters, was Marcus. And what's neat
that's
about
really
Marcus,
cool.
what's neat about Marcus is he
That's
kind of
cool.
looked like me.
That is way cool.
And he was a sorcerer, and this is going back to I want to say it's almost going back to having Thaco, although I could be wrong on that. No, maybe they fixed that one. That's a whole nother story. You might want to Google that one. But yeah, I mean that was I used to like I had a dwarf fighter. I had she was like a druid, like a astronomy loving moon child druid. So that part of it was just getting artistic and getting in there and drawing up stuff, and so that's why I loved it so much. You don't have to do that. If you can't draw, that doesn't mean that you can't play. But that was my angle on getting into the game, because I like the art side of it.
I think a lot of people find the character creation stressful.
I can see that.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so. I mean, poor Kurt was struggling putting together a Death Knight on World of Warcraft.
Hush. No, I was not.
He was struggling.
Okay, I've got a question for you guys.
Okay, go ahead.
So these days, what do people do when they need to make a character? I mean, do they use online stuff? Do they use are there programs that help you build the characters? I see a lot of people go, here's my character, and it's obviously an electronically created illustration of somebody. Is that how things are done even on the D&D side, or is it like I sketch it up? I don't know, because my thing is like I will automatically go for let me just start drawing.
Are you talking about for World of Warcraft or just for Dungeons and Dragons?
Anything. I mean, anything where you go, I have to play a character. What's it going to be?
Okay, Kurt, can you find the picture of Carewaith, please?
Absolutely.
And then I'll show you, because for World of Warcraft, you create a character on screen. This is my character, Carewaith. She's a Death Knight, and this is the way she looks in game.
Okay.
I have something called the WoW Armory, and so I just took a screenshot of her, cropped it, added a filter, and this is what she looks like. So for that, it's done online. It's done through the game.
Okay.
Now for Dungeons and Dragons, I've actually been looking into it, and I mean there's various pieces of software you can go to. You can commission an artist on like DeviantArt to create a character for you, or what your character looks like. Oh yeah, I've actually seen it. Yeah, I've actually seen it with World of Warcraft as well. There's a lot of people who do World of Warcraft art.
So what do? You send them you PayPal them like $20 or something, and
Yeah.
they draw your character.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Yeah.
Thing.
And so they could draw it for you if you're someone like me who can barely draw a stick figure.
Yes.
Now, I would have no issue putting together a character with words, but if I had to draw one, I would be SOL. It would not be pretty.
Well, again,
question. Because I mean, you say you wouldn't have a problem putting a character together with words, but like you talked about, like 4th, 5th edition, you had a giant book in your hand a while ago. You've been playing for 20 years. This is almost intimidating. Like, I really want to play D&D, but as a complete novice who doesn't know much about it at all, it's almost like so intimidating. I don't know where to start. And so, like, where do I go? How do I get over that?
Well, maybe I'll jump in on this. I mean, are you saying World of Warcraft or D&D?
D&D.
All right. So the thing with D&D is you kind of do need the rule books. Now, whether or not they're probably available as giant PDFs online. In fact, I know the Pathfinders are. But you do need those. So the rule books really just tell you how you're going to do that. You know, how you're going to decide, you know, when you roll up your characters. Let's say, for example, one of our guys dies in one of our adventures, and it happens. In fact, for a while, I was the one that was dying a lot. You know, it became kind of the joke. Anyway, so, you know, you go, all right, well, I got to roll up a new character. So you just start, you roll your dice, and there are various methods on how you roll your dice. You get a stack of numbers. You decide how you're going to assign them to various stats. There's 6 core stats, and then in your head, you go, well, what kind of character do I want to make? Do I want to have a barbarian? Do I want to have a fighter that's more trained? Do I want to have a magic user? If I want a magic user, do I want it to be a wizard? Do I want it to be a sorcerer? I've always been a big fan of sorcerers, by the way, so I've played quite a few of those. And you just kind of like start fleshing out what you want it to be and what you want your character's backstory to be and how you want to play your character. Because when it comes down to it, it's going to be you deciding how your character would behave in any certain situation. Because it's really not just if all you're doing is trying to like max out all the numbers and win, you can do that, but it'll be a lot less fun than you deciding, I'm playing a character with these kind of quirks, this kind of background, and this is what they would do given a situation. And that's a lot more fun.
I think I'm so used to the idea of character creation being templatized. Rather than me sitting down with a pen and a notepad, it's always been in front of a screen, and I'm given 20, 25 options, and I choose one. And so, but it appeals to me, the idea of character creation as a figment of my own imagination entirely. Based off of obviously like the stats and stuff you were talking about, but applying that, I mean, it's just a different paradigm to gaming that I'm not used to.
I mean, because the thing is the selection of numbers that you get from rolling, for example, a bunch of dice, and you know, you're going to get a big variance in numbers. Some of your stats are going to stink, and so you can go. Well, you can ask the DM. You can say, hey, you know, I rolled up a bunch of 8s. Can I do it again? And, you know, if they're cool to be like, yeah, of course, you know, no problem. Everybody wants to have all 18s on every stat. I mean, that's, you know, that would be awesome. You're a super character. Problem is then you're super boring, because you're always going to be awesome at everything. So I like to try to think of it as like an X-Men type thing. Every character is good at something, and your team works well when everybody brings their thing in. You got your fighter, you got your person, you got your heavy that's going to, you know, run in there and take a lot of damage. You have your healer that's ready to jump in there and save everybody. You know, everyone's not good at everything, but all together you're an awesome team.
Can I say something real fast?
Yes.
From a historical standpoint, you know, when we think about Dungeons and Dragons, and again, the only experience and exposure I had to it was back in high school, so we're talking about mid-'80s. So the thing that I think is shocking or maybe surprising to people, you know, quote, youth today, is that there's a tremendous amount of effort and time that's given towards the details of those characters. So when Jason says, you know, you're rolling to make your character, there's actually a lot of investment of time, and there's a whole lot of freedom in Dungeons and Dragons that allows people to sort of create the world that they want to create. Now, if you talk about the microwave youth of today, you don't usually want to spend so much time on the details, right? The devil's in the details. And so when you play a World of Warcraft, or even this morning when I was setting up my Shroud of the Avatar character. It's shocking how quickly you can do it, because we went through this whole, setting up a character was pretty quick a long time ago on computer games. Then they became more involved, and it felt a little bit more like Dungeons and Dragons. And now it's kind of gone back the other way, it feels like to me. So, for instance, when Rochelle shows her character from WoW, I think people would be shocked how many artists work at these companies, like James could speak to. I mean, there's just a ton of artwork that goes into these games, and so there's flexibility and freedom to create the character's look, and you can arm it the way you want to, and get the the characters look kind of the way you want to, but you don't usually create all of those details. But with D&D, it's really up to somebody that's got a lot of imagination, I think, is how to think about it. And you really don't, I mean, there's rule books like Jason's talking about, but I think that sometimes people really like to just get in and play the game. So like my son wanted to just get in and start swinging his sword. He didn't really care that my character had white skin, dark skin, was male, was big, small. And one of the neat things that Shroud of Avatar did was that they asked you questions, and then it derives your characteristics based on how you answer those questions. So you have a bunch of money, you're walking past a beggar, and do you give the beggar money, or do you deliver your money to the people that you're supposed to deliver it to? Likewise, do you help your friends who are in trouble, or do you stand guard while you sit there and fulfill your responsibility, or do you walk away and help your friends that need your help? I think that's kind of an interesting way to develop your character. I guess my point that I'm just trying to make is that we've gone through this huge spectrum of how we create our characters, and they look stunning right now, right? I mean, some of these characters are just mind-boggling, especially if you're somebody that's coming from old 80s type graphics. But it's up to people's decision as to do I like to really spend a lot of time creating my characters, or do I just want to get in and play the game? And usually the games will offer sort of both flavors, so that you can get in and just start playing if you want to, or you can take all the time in the world to create those nuances that really excite you. So.
And this is where that's where the idea of who's going to be the quote unquote dungeon master comes in. I mean, who's going to? Are you going to get a? Are you going to get a? What do they call it? Like a pre-made adventure? What do they call those things when you buy the?
Choose your own.
Well, no, there was a
choose your own adventure, but yeah.
There was a term for them. But anyway, are you going to buy a pre-made adventure kit and apply the characters to that kit, and basically the DM just reads out what the next steps are, and the characters respond to it? Or are you going to be playing something that's somebody that your friends came up with? And that, when we were younger, we would do a lot more creation. I only DM'd one adventure out of the whole time, but I went into it full blown, and I designed a town that was like a 3 or 4 generation long town. I designed who everybody was related to. I wanted all the characters to actually be from that town, so that way they all had a connection to it and they cared what was going to happen to them. So the only demand that I put on the characters is, you're going to be from here, and you're all going to know each other. So that way, if whatever happens to the town, you care. It's not just like, yeah, whatever, let them all die. I don't give a crap. And I outlined, who was related to whom, going back 3 generations. So that was like a big job to do that. I could have bought a book and said, okay, page 1, you meet in a bar, or you meet in a tavern. And some people can do that too if you just want to get down to the nitty-gritty of adventuring and dungeon crawling. They're not bad. They're actually pretty. I mean, they have a lot of writers working on those things. But it just depends on how you want to play. It is fun to do somebody's adventure that you have no idea, but it's their imagination. That's a lot of fun.
So that sounds like a good time. I actually like that.
Yeah, it does sound
idea.
super fun.
I like that. Actually, it sounds like you really put a lot of thought into that, Jason.
I did. In fact, I still have the. This was the list of who all lived in the town and how many generations back it went and who was related to whom.
Oh my gosh!
So I knew who was cousins with whom, whose grandmother was whom from the founding of the town.
Wow.
That was a bit much. But
how long did that take you to put together?
That took a while. Yeah, never mind how long that took. But it helped that I had just started working freelance, so I had a little bit more time than when I was, going to doing 9 to 5 work. And likewise, when one of my friends who's a teacher, when summertime comes, a lot of times he'll DM because he's got the extra time to actually put some thought into it, where the rest of us, are kind of crunched.
Mm.
Again, it's how much you want to invest in it, But you can buy the modules. You can buy a game module, open it up, tell everybody what you're starting off with, and get into it. You don't have to do that. They're not bad at all.
I have a question, Jason, that was just texted to me. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
People want to know if when you're at a restaurant, do you roll your polyhedral dice to determine what you want to eat?
Of course, and if it's if I roll a 20, I don't have to pay. So that's awesome. I actually I have my little box of dice here. And this has been my thing for the longest time, is this little fishing box full of dice and full of little characters and stuff. And sometimes dice are hot and sometimes they're not. So I have backups for everything.
Do you have your dice, Jerome? Your
I
brand new
love
dice?
that. That is awesome.
Jerome,
Rochelle,
do you have your brand new dice?
I don't have any dice. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Uh-huh.
Why would you even do this to me?
Oh, I would
Why?
never do this to you. I've got some awesome dice that I got today, and they're my first dice that I've ever purchased, and I can't hold them up to the camera because I don't have a cool fishing tackle box like somebody I know. But yeah, I can't even show you my dice. I do have my
Hold them
dice.
up like that.
Just hold
Yeah,
on.
just pick them up and stop moving them.
You can't. He does the hashtag.
Apparently, I can't even hold my dice right.
Do that.
Hashtag D20.
Okay, everybody settle down.
I got my dice.
If I roll a 13, then you all have to just leave. Here we go.
Well, you're gonna roll, right?
No, I'm not going to roll, because I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but you have to add your pluses. So.
Does Kurt have dice? No, I don't think so, and that's all I have to say about that.
Hello.
Kurt's got dice. Is that like an extra big die? Is that like normal size?
Yeah. Well, Kurt's just small.
Hush, squatch.
I don't have dice.
So anyway, that's my personal role playing thing is D&D. Again, we play Pathfinder now, but it's basically D&D rules and dice and 6 of my friends, and we all get together and just like I said, half of the night is talking about other things besides D&D.
Right.
It's you get together, you talk about what happened at work, what's stupid, what's going on in the news, what are we going to eat tonight? Let's see what else. How Star Wars could have been better. All of those dumb things that distract from the whole. We probably adventure, for an hour and a half out of a 3.5 hour night.
Can I make a final observation, and that is to tie this into space? Those spheres that appear in ISS, those aren't just accidentally designed like polyhedron, dice. Am I right? Those things look exactly like somebody was at NASA, they were playing Dungeons and Dragons, they were like, oh, hey, I got an idea.
Yeah, roll a d20. Every time
the big spheres.
When they, the CubeSats, when they let them go out, from the little chute and they go out into orbit.
Right.
Whenever I see that picture, I always retweet it, and I'm like, roll 3d6, because that's exactly what it looks like. It's like off with the tube.
That's funny. Where do we want to go next?
Give me a second.
I'm going to give you a second.
So did you, Jason? Do you remember a game that was around the mid to late '80s called Traveler? It was a space-based game.
I don't. I'm sure a couple of my friends would, but I wasn't into any of that stuff in the '80s.
Okay. It was pretty cool. What I hated is there was a ton of math involved with it, so you actually had to run the calculations to break orbit, transplanetary injection, and stuff like that. But it was pretty cool for a space nerd. that all of these orbital mechanics were part of the game, and you had to roll for stuff like that too.
Oh, well, that was. You know what? If I had heard of it, I probably wouldn't have wanted to play it.
It was very detail oriented. It was not fun. It was just cool.
Right. It was fun for some people, I'm sure. Just for engineers might. Well, I mean, you are an engineer. Maybe you didn't think. If you didn't think
I hated it. I hated it.
What did I miss?
I hated it.
Sounds kind of awesome.
It was a game I used to play called Traveler, and it was like space-based D&D. You had to run calculations to break orbit and to reach orbit and stuff like that, and roll for success and things. So it was kind of a detail-oriented game. And
so it was like a paper-based Kerbal?
No, because it was far more futuristic than that. It was probably closer to StarCraft.
Oh, right. Okay.
So, sorry, that was just to break the interlude there while Miss Rochelle got up.
I'm sorry. I guess this would probably be a good time to start talking about Magic the Gathering.
Yay!
My favorite. Well, next to World of Warcraft. Is that Ethan singing? Okay, so I know Jason's played. And how long did you play, Jason?
Well, I started playing Magic probably in the early 2000s. So we only played for about 2 or 3 years, because eventually I moved, and then I didn't have anybody to play with, and then all of our D&D group, not everybody was into Magic. Some people didn't feel like investing in the cards, getting into it, but we probably played for about 2 or 3 years between 2001 and 2003, 2004.
Okay, and because I know when we were talking about it, you were saying that you don't like the current Magic because of the counters.
I've never been a fan of counters.
Hate the counters. Now, what is so bad about the counters?
I don't like.
I'm just
I
curious.
don't like having to. I don't like maintenance on my cards.
Okay.
I like to play them, and they're there and they do stuff, and I'm paying attention to what the other people have. I don't want to have to be like, oh, geez, I forgot to add a counter. What round are we on? Oh, I got to take a counter off. I don't work that way.
Okay.
So yeah, it starts getting too mechanical, too mathematical, and then it's not fun anymore. I understand you could do tons of damage and do awesome things with it, but I've just never been into it.
Because back when you played, they didn't have the counters, right?
No.
I didn't play back then. I literally just started playing probably about 2 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, they had a few characters that would have the extra, every now and then, but then they started adding it to everything. It was like every time there was a new series that came out, that was a major part of it. So I was like, well, obviously there are people who like this. I'm just not on board with that. But I haven't played a lot because my other friends didn't keep up with it. So it's hard to find more nights where people are available to get together and do that. Everyone's got kids. They just don't have the time. So just I've got my cards sitting over here.
Are you going to show us your cards? Because I'm about to show my cards.
Why don't you show your cards?
Well, first of all, I'm going to show what he's talking about with the counters. This is my latest.
They're so technical. Look at that. What is this +1 -9 thing?
Okay.
I don't understand.
So this is a Planeswalker. This is Sorin. This is my favorite. One of my favorite characters is Sorin and Avacyn, which was his creation.
That makes sense to me.
This makes sense to you?
That makes sense to me because I can read what things do. It says, okay, it has this, it has that. This is what it means. Move ahead.
It's a dual-sided card.
Oh, for crying out loud!
I knew that would get you.
How can it be dual-sided? Then everybody knows that you have it.
No. Because with this, she does stuff, and then when you do that stuff,
yeah,
then you flip her over and she turns into evil Avacyn.
Yeah, but when you have your deck sitting there, you know it's coming.
Well, yes. If you know the card, yes, of course you're going to know what's coming.
Oh,
most
wait
of the time, Magic players.
No. You've got little cases for your cards.
I've been told that that's necessary.
I froze.
You have little cases for your cards.
Because she's a pro.
But you kind of have to do that now. That's the thing.
You have to put well. I have.
Darn kids with your card cases.
No, well, first of all, you want to keep your expensive cards from getting damaged.
Okay.
Why would you? I mean, say you had a Black Lotus. Why would you want that to get damaged?
Why? Who's going to damage it?
Oh, I do have a Black Lotus, and that's all you need to know.
Once you go, never mind.
Yeah, wait. How's your card gonna get damaged though? I'm concerned.
Finger oils and.
Well,
that's another level.
When you're sitting there, shuffling, they get bent.
Okay, so is this like a card you buy individually, or is this like you bought a pack? Is it like super rare?
That is a good. Well, the one that I have it's called a mythic rare.
Yeah.
So all of these. So I've got 3 planeswalkers and a mythic rare, which is Avacyn, and then a rare. And so I actually pulled those out of a pack. And the pack was from this, my fat pack. And it's from the Shadows of Innistrad. And inside, you get all these cool boxes. Okay.
Nice.
But then you get packs of cards that you open. And then you just get different cards in them. So you want to find the Planeswalkers, you want to find the Mythic Rares, you want to find all those good cards, and it keeps you buying pack after pack after pack because you really, really want to get those good cards.
Yes.
It's crack.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, and I don't like the color that I just got, but this is the dice, the 20-sided dice that you get in there as well, and I have a ton of these Magic the Gathering dice, which I don't think you're going to be able to see. There we go.
Yeah.
From different blocks, and I was hooked the first time I started playing.
What hooked you? Was it the lore? Was it the artwork? Was it the gameplay?
It was the artwork. Okay. The artwork got me hooked right away. And
yeah, the artwork is awesome.
I mean,
I love going to like Comic-Con conventions and stuff. Different like smaller, especially not like San Diego Comic-Con. It's mainly like about movies and stuff. Where the Comic-Cons that are smaller and stuff, it's mainly about drawing and stuff, and you see just amazing drawers like that, and you're just like, wow.
Have you been to Long Beach Comic-Con?
No, I haven't.
It's actually a really good Comic-Con that you should go to if you ever get the chance. Typically October, November, and it's smaller, but I got to meet Seth Green there, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I like the smaller events. They're fun. I went to a smaller one in Kansas City and got to sit on like the iron iron chair, the Game of Thrones chair.
Game of Thrones, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, George R.R. Martin was there. What?
Did you get your picture taken?
Oh yeah. Got so many pictures. Saw R2-D2, met the droid.
No, but did you get a picture of you sitting on the
Oh yeah.
You need to show that to me. I want to see it.
Okay, let me find it. I'm sure it's on my computer.
I got a funny story just to interject on that one. Is there's a guy that I met when I moved back to Rhode Island, and he lives in my neighborhood. I met him at the local Starbucks, and he's an artist. He's a painter. He's done book covers, magazine covers, all sorts of stuff for sci-fi, fantasy. And his name's Bob Eggleton, and he used to do magic back in some of the beginning days, back in like the 90s. And he did a bunch of magic cards. I have yet to go through my collection to see if I have any of his, but he's a really cool guy, and he just said that when it started, it was awesome, and then they started getting new directors and stuff like that. He didn't like the he didn't like getting pushed around with art direction, so he left. But he did a bunch of really cool stuff. Anyway, that's cool.
Yeah, when
I'm
you go,
also-
yeah.
I was going to say that I was just reading about Bob Eggleton, if it's the same person you're talking about, Jason, and he's gotten a lot of art awards.
Oh
pretty
yeah,
cool.
I mean he's done
Pretty
a ton of Godzilla stuff. That's kind of like that's been his recent well, not even recent. He's just been working on a lot of Godzilla posters and comics. He just did Godzilla Goes to Hell or something like that. He did a whole book. Yeah, I mean but his work's really cool. And he's a fun guy. So yeah, I see him every now. I mean I'll see him once or twice a week. Just kind of coming in and out. Be like, hey Bob. He'd be like, hey Jason. He's just a cool guy.
I'm kind of a new player to Magic. I haven't played yet. I'm trying to build my deck from this stack of stuff right now, and it's a little daunting. I'll admit.
But you're letting it. If you, like I told you, just sit down with the cards. You look at them. You think about what colors you want to play. If you want to do mono, if you want to do multi. You just can't think of it as a chore, because the second you start thinking of it as a chore and daunting, you're not going to want to play it.
Well, part of the problem, I was sitting on the Magic couch, and so I kept falling asleep.
Sit on the floor so you don't fall asleep. Put the cards in front of you, look at the artwork, and see what colors you want to play.
Yes, ma'am.
I would also say that there was a time in the past, I want to say last October, where Rochelle attempted to teach me to play Magic. And my two takeaways were, one, it needs more than an hour and a half to 2 hours.
It can be complicated. Yeah.
And second of all, a Starbucks is a really, really terrible location to try and learn Magic, because I left more confused than when I arrived. But I got a question though, like for people who have actually actively played Magic, have you played Magic online, and does it translate as a similar kind of gameplay, or is it a different thing online?
It's a different feel. It helps teach you, but nothing beats playing with real cards with people and having to Google the rules, or having to go to if you're playing at the comic book store or the gaming store, and having to go and ask the employee who's been playing Magic since they were 10 how a rule. It's just, for me, playing online, there's no personal connection whatsoever. I find that playing with a person is a lot better, and you learn.
And again, you play for your group too. If you play with the same people a lot, you will build decks that are going to be effective against your friends. Unlike D&D, you're not playing a character in Magic. You're trying to kick your friends' butts, and so you want to come up with a deck that's going to really screw them. And that's the fun part. Nobody's angry at anybody else for it. It's what you do. If you play against one other friend, usually, then you're going to have an entirely different type of deck or entirely different scenario than if you're playing against a table full of people. Because it has some cards are for you get to choose who you're going to do something against. Well, if you only got one other opponent, it's always going to be them. So it's you're really playing for how you play, and I've always played with my friends, so I knew what they had, so I was ready for them. So it was always an arms race, really. What was building your deck.
It seems true for a lot of TCGs though as well, doesn't it? Like I remember like the WoW TCG when that was around. I played that a little bit, and that was a similar thing. It's like if I was always playing with the same people, I would build effective decks to beat them. There's a couple of guys I work with that are really into Force of Will, and similar thing, like they play each other most lunchtimes, and they have custom decks to defeat each other. But they also, they do it to compete competitively as well. But that a similar kind of notion of like building a deck based on your group and the social element of it as well seems like a common thing. And like for me, that's been, I think, the hardest hurdle for me, is because the most exposure I've had to a card-based game has been Hearthstone. So it's totally online, and that's completely different because I'm being match-made with strangers most of the time, and my deck is 30 cards of my best guess. And it feels like there's more intention or intentionality behind having a successful Magic deck or Force of Will deck or WoW TCG deck.
Yeah, I used to go play Friday Night Magic, and I would get just steamrolled because I was getting beat by decks that were, $1,000, $500, and here I come with my little, $60 deck, $100 deck, and I'm just getting steamrolled. So when you go play Friday Night Magic, if you go in there knowing, okay, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to have fun, I'm probably going to get my butt beat, but that's fine. I'm just going to. But if you go in there to be competitive, you're going to have to drop a lot of dough for the cards.
And that was one of the things I was worried about. I don't want to buy a win. I want to play and have a good time.
That's exactly why I like to play. My friend David came down, and we played Magic last week, and I love it. I like playing against friends. I don't like playing Friday Night Magic. I have nothing against the Friday Night Magic. I just would rather play with friends instead.
It's a social experience.
It is. It is. It's good to play with friends, but there are people who do it, just like World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, and I mean you're playing to win. You're playing to win money, to win packs. I'm just not into that. I like to just play. And when my brother, before he went to the Air Force, hi Austin, I taught him how to play, and that was what I did when I'd come home from work and I would play with him. And we would play Magic, and it's something that I will never forget. It's something that I thoroughly enjoy, was playing with my brother and teaching him, and he would have his cards in his hand, and you could just see when he would have a good card that he was going to play against me. And one of his favorite things to do, and just like Jerome, was to make my head explode when he would kick my ass. And he would put the card down, and I would look, and I'd go, and he would get this little smirk. And I moments like that, you can't get that online.
That means you're a good teacher.
Okay. Although poor James, I don't think he would agree with that.
He was just, yeah. The venue, that was spilled green tea.
I know.
That was because of Starbucks, though, right? It was the Starbucks environment that hindered the teaching.
It was, and but I have to have coffee.
Right. No, I understand.
Plus, she also didn't want James to beat her, so she made sure he didn't know what was going on.
She taught him everything he knows, but not everything she knows.
I got another
question. Oh, okay. I have one question too. So when you're playing at these events, do you lose your best card, for instance? Are you playing for pinks type thing?
No.
Keeps these.
Playing for title? No. You
okay.
don't.
Do they just clean out your whole deck? You're just like, oh man, I have to spend another $60?
No. No, you don't. You get to keep your cards. Yeah.
Okay. You just have to go spend more money.
Yeah. Now,
Go
ahead, Drew.
I was going to ask Carolina how many cars she has lost, because if she's betting pinks on a lot of racing, I don't understand.
No, the Russians will not lose race. We win.
One of the questions that I was getting is how much money do you have to spend to get into D&D, and how much money do you have to spend to get into Magic? Is there a quick sort of, $20, $50, $1? I mean, what is the answer to that?
That is an excellent question.
$1 billion.
But getting into D&D, there's an investment usually in some books.
Yeah.
Okay. The books aren't cheap books, but they're $30, $40 for a core rule book, a player's handbook. If you're going to then DM, then you're going to also need the Dungeon Master's Guide, and then usually a monster manual. So, and again, if you're just going to be a player, you don't need those extra ones, but the DM will have to have at least those three. So there is that investment, but then after that, you're usually done, other than getting some dice. I mean, my player's handbook is 15 years old, and I still use it and look at it. The Pathfinder, that stuff's all online. In fact, I think the website is PFRS D20 or something like that. And you can get all of your information. You can download PDFs. You got everything there. So it's really just the dice, and you can go with it. If you want to buy modules, you can buy those. If you want to buy miniatures, you can buy those. But you don't have to. Magic is crack. You just keep going to it. You just keep buying more cards, more cards, more cards. And go ahead.
That is the problem. Is that you want to keep pulling these good cards. You want to be able to put together a good deck. So you keep buying the packs after packs after packs, because
reminds me of Pokemon.
It's not
unlike that.
No, it's not unlike that at all. But it's also no fun to go out and buy a Planeswalker. It's an adrenaline rush when you pull one out of a pack.
Yes.
Right. You're missing the point.
Yes.
I mean, you can individually buy a deck that you want, spend all the money on each card, and then go, instantly I will defeat you all. You can be that guy. You could be that girl who does that, but you're going to, again, miss the point. And I'll bring up a game that doesn't exist anymore. This was going back to, let's see, about 2003, 2004. I was playing with my friends. We were playing Dungeons and Dragons miniatures. Now, I don't know if any of you remember this, but they made a game that was based on D&D, but it was the little figurines, and the figurines had stats, and the figurines had cards that came with each one, and you played them as if you were setting up a battle in Dungeons and Dragons, but there was no story to it. It was all about just, you brought your 100-point party to the game, another person brought their 100-point party to the game, and you had a grid set up, and you maneuvered them around however many spaces they could move per turn, and they had their abilities. But to be any fun, like Magic, you had to have a library of these characters. So what did that have you doing? Going to the gaming store and buying boxes. They were all blind boxes. So you're like, oh, what am I going to get? We spent a lot of money on that stuff. Now the fortunate thing is we could use those minis in D&D. So now the guys, even though we don't play them anymore, because they stopped the game, they don't even manufacture it anymore. And when I moved, I sold everything to a friend of mine. But the guys who do still have them, well, they've got a box full of little, appropriately sized figurines that they can use and we can use when we play Dungeons and Dragons. So if we encounter an orc horde, well, we've got all the little things, and that's handy.
So, Jason, I think actually they've started manufacturing them again.
Oh, Christ.
I did a quick Google. I did a quick Google search and found there's a pack recently released called Icons of the Realm.
I was going to say, because those box packs are pretty common now. Like, I was telling Rochelle, you can even get, like, Magic now. Like, the Planeswalker, just, like, box set, and you'll get, like, a standard set cards, for each kind of Planeswalker, and you can kind of set it up. But it's not really the same experience like we're talking about,
Jerome, and to answer the question about how much does it cost to get into Magic, that depends. You can go in and you can buy a starter set. You can go in and you could buy the Fat Pack, and the Fat Pack is typically on Amazon they run a little bit more, but at my local card shop it's $35. I've seen them go for $40. I've seen some of the older ones go for $100, $200. You could just go in and buy 3 packs, and that's typically will run you $10 to $12. My personal opinion, I started with the Fat Pack, and people will hear all sorts of opinions on how to start. My personal opinion is get a Fat Pack and then just start buying packs after that. You get a lot of good cards in the Fat Pack. You have a chance to pull the Planeswalkers. You have a chance to pull a lot of good cards, and then just start buying packs after that. But make sure you get your sleeves.
Yes.
You old time Magic players, Jason, in your non-sleeve cards. Dare you?
I can hear
Oh
you.
my God, that just makes that just. Oh, when I see people who don't play with sleeves, and I
Never
just see
played
their
with sleeves.
cards, and they're just like, they're grimy.
Okay, I had a friend who did put all of his cards in the sleeves, and the only reason was because his cat would pee on them. So
Well, that's a good reason.
so then there was a point where his cat had peed on all of his cards.
No.
His
Oh my
cat peed on all of his cards, so he had to take them and I don't know what he did. He soaked them in something. I don't know if he soaked them in salt or if he put rice in there or whatever he did. But then after that, everything went in his sleeve. But I have never done that, and I will never do that. So
How dare you?
so we can't play.
How can we not segue into exploding kittens after the cat peed?
Seriously.
No kidding.
But it
What
begs
a
the
great
question,
segue.
was the cat peeing on anything else, or was it just the magic cards?
Yeah, no kidding. Was he just angry against the magic cards?
Clearly, all of the guy's attention was going towards magic, and the cat was pissed off.
You know what? I think that's it right there.
That's a good cat.
Oh my God, that just.
But yeah,
oh.
let's switch over to Jerome with this with the oatmeal Matthew Inman's game.
Yeah.
So just real quick, Jason, I don't see a cat ever on your cat stand back there. Did you get rid of your cat? What ended up happening?
Door is shut. I can't deal with up and down and jump and meow meow and yeah, it would be a thing. On the lap, off the lap. No.
Yep. Completely understand. Same thing here.
So I'm not a huge player of Exploding Kittens. We just sort of got our pack and we haven't had a whole lot of opportunity to play it. But it's for anybody out there that doesn't know about it. These guys did a Kickstarter because they had this really cool idea, and it turns out that the artist that was working on the design is Oatmeal. If you have a Twitter account, you can check him out, and he's a fantastically funny artist. And so this card game has just way out there humor. You don't really kill cats, but the story is that these cats can explode, and if you pick the card that has an exploding kitten on it, you're basically out of the game. So there's a lot of strategy to it. I haven't had the opportunity to play with a bunch of friends, although I'm supposed to do it next weekend, so it'll be my first time. But for anybody out there, you can pick up a pack from Amazon relatively inexpensively. It's $20, and they also have a not safe for work additional pack for it, so that's kind of fun. But you also can get the apps now. So I believe the apps are out on Android. I know for sure it's out on Apple iOS, and you can play with friends through the apps. So that's an alternative too, if you want to do it that way. But I just wanted to mention it because we talked about cat pee, and there's a lot of fun stuff going on out there with people playing the Nope card. So if you want to stop somebody from doing something in the game, you can throw down a Nope card, and there's all sorts of, again, funny graphics that Oatmeal has created for it, and it's just a lot of fun. So check it out. It's explodingkittens.com if you want to check it out.
That sounds like something I had mentioned the other day, the Munchkins card game. Where
Munchkins is great.
Yeah, it's okay. So James knows Munchkins.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's a great game. It is so much fun.
It's funny and it's fun and it's got a great mechanic. And again, yeah, we would, when we play, sometimes we have what we call alternate gaming nights, and that happens when too many people can't make it. So we don't want to continue the D&D adventure because people would just miss out on what's going on. So we'll do something else. We might play a D&D based board game. We might play something called Small World. Various tabletop games. One of the guys is a real big collector of tabletop games. But Munchkins is a big fan favorite because a bunch of us can play, and it's got that sense of, well, screw you, well, screw you, well, screw you, and that's the fun part of it.
There's a ton of expansions to Munchkins now as well.
There are so many.
Yeah, I
So
played
very
it.
many.
I played it a couple of years ago when I was at PAX East, and I think they had just released their first expansion. But I was I can't remember where I was, but I was in somewhere, Target or something, and I saw there's like 7 different expansions to it now as well. It's become quite a deep game, but it's hilarious, and it's very much like it's kind of keep your friends close and your enemies closer kind of game. There's a lot of backstabbing, a lot of like, oh, I'm gonna join an alliance with you, and then in the next turn I'm gonna turn around and be a traitor. It's a fun game.
It's like Magic, actually, except it's silly. Except
Yeah.
the premise is silly.
Really silly.
It's not
very
heavy.
silly.
It's not heavy fantasy. It's silly fantasy. And what's neat is that all the expansion packs work together. So you can have the core set, you can have the Cowboys set, you can have the Cthulhu set, you can have everything, and they all manage to play the same game. So that's a lot of fun too.
Mm.
The only thing
What is
that's
this
not
called?
fun
What is
is
that
I've
called?
got what's that?
What was that called again?
Munchkins.
Munchkins.
The only set that's not fun, and I was sad about this, and I'm gonna, if the company's listening, shame on you, but was the Conan the Barbarian Munchkin set. I was a big fan of Conan when I was a kid. I used to collect the comic books, read the books, obviously loved the movies. I bought the Munchkins theme set. It wasn't funny. There was no fun. They had everything in there except the funny. So I brought it to game night one time and says, hey, let's try this. And we're all playing and we're like, it wasn't even a good time. So we haven't played it since. It's like, $25.
How disappointing.
I know. They could have, they had so much to work with there. They could have made so many, lamentations of the women and, I mean, it's Conan. They could have done anything. And
Right.
instead they just made it really dry. They got everything that I'm sure there was everything that the licensors wanted to have in there, but they weren't allowed to make it silly. Maybe they weren't allowed to. Maybe they just dialed it in. Maybe they just collected the license money and moved ahead. But it just, the end result wasn't anything any good. So don't buy that one, viewers.
Take it from Jason.
Yeah, don't buy that one.
Take it from Jason.
Get the Cthulhu one. That one's a lot of fun.
Okay, that's the one I want to get. I'm obsessed with Cthulhu. Love Cthulhu. I love it. So I'm going to have to get that one.
Get that one. That one was a good time. I like that.
All right. Okay, I think we might go, Carolina, I know you wanted to talk about a pretty awesome game that's going to be coming out.
Yeah, this new game, it's going to be a PS4 and a PC game. It's called No Man's Sky. It's going to be pretty awesome. I don't know if has anyone on the panel heard about No Man's Sky?
I've been waiting for it for what, 17 years now? When did they announce that they were going to be making this thing?
Yeah, it's been in work for a while. Yeah, they had the big I guess press launch where they actually showed people back in 2015 at the E3 it was for PlayStation. But yeah, it should be pretty awesome. So basically, it's a space exploration game. And essentially, when you buy the game, you have it set up. Everyone's starting out on their own planet, and basically, you have to survive in space on this planet. So you're using the resources you can find. For instance, plutonium. So you can mine plutonium and use that for fuel and stuff. So you need fuel for your spaceship. You need different resources to keep you cold or like for instance, if it's really hot, you need to stay cool. If it's really cold, you need to stay warm. So there's dangers like that. There's the sentinels that actually protect the different planets and stuff. So if you are mining too much, they attack you. And kind of like in Grand Theft Auto, there's a wanted level. So they attack you the more wanted you are. For instance, they'll bring in, the choppers and stuff instead of just their feet troopers. So that should be really great. What is so cool about this game, though, is literally you're playing in the same galaxy as everyone else, but you probably will never get to that person's planet, for instance, say your buddy's planet, because it's such a vast galaxy. Everyone's trying to get to the center of this galaxy. That's, I guess, one of the goals of this game. You're trying to explore this galaxy, right? But you need a lot of resources. There's a whole lot going on, so I mean, you can be in, intergalactic battles and stuff. There's different system battles going on. So, I don't know. I'm really excited for the game. It should be pretty awesome.
It sounds really similar to Spore, a couple of things that you were just mentioning there.
What was the game you were saying?
Spore?
Spore. Okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, Spore was like at the time was likened to Civilization, but in space.
Right. Spore was designed by Maxi's founder, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's cool that they're taking the whole like space aspect. Like I was mentioning, like plutonium, they have some similar elements. They have like the periodic table, but kind of like a play off of our periodic table,
Mm.
to kind of show you how to use resources and how to survive essentially if you are exploring different planets, and how to use the resources you do have in a smart way so you can sustain.
Mm.
Now, one of the things that's interesting from what I've heard about No Man's Sky is the way it generates planets, and if they're still doing this. So it has this algorithm built into the game that generates planets basically kind of in a random fashion. So there are literally trillions of variations that you can find on planets. Some planets will have life, some planets won't. The way that life varies is obviously, planet to planet. You will never run into the same planet twice. And
Exactly. And
yeah,
what's so cool about those algorithms, exactly like what you were saying, Jason, is it's preventing any like loading waiting time.
right.
So, it's constantly refeeding. You're flying out on your spaceship from a planet, and you see everything, the kind of light trails, type thing, because you're accelerating and whatnot, and you get there and there's no like loading to next planet type thing. So that's
You know what I saw a press release where the gentleman that was designing it talked about the fact that it was this infinitely large, real universe type environment, and I think, and you touched on this, Carolina, that there's concern about the fact that you won't run into the people that you're playing with or want to play with. So I'm really curious to see how the gameplay develops in that sort of sense, because I think it's interesting that you can create this huge world, which is what he's kind of hanging his hat on. But from a gameplay perspective, it'll be interesting to see what they do to bring people together to make it fun in that way. Because at this point, I've seen very little PR around that game. Although I like the idea myself, one of the things, and we just mentioned this, the game Spore that was designed by Will Wright kind of tapped into that sort of element where it was rather a large game, and Will Wright was responsible for the Sims series and other games. But it's really tricky to design a world, especially an interactive world, in which you have a large group of people that are playing, and if you want to play and interact with your friends, you don't want the world so large that you can't find each other, right? So there must be a way that they can solve that problem, I would assume. But
I don't
it's
think
strange
it's
how the PR.
not a multiplayer game.
Is that true?
So, I don't believe it's. I mean, unless the recent release has changed something, because I do think that they've added some story elements to the game, whereas initially it was just kind of showing what you can find and what you can explore. But I don't think that the game is technically a multiplayer game. So to say I want to come find your planet, it's not really like that.
Well, that's interesting.
It is technically a multiplayer game because technically we're all playing the same universe.
Okay.
Because that's what the designer was talking about, but yeah, it doesn't make sense. Like, I mean, eventually, if millions of people buy this game, you'll run into someone else's planet. But he's saying that yeah, it's so big, you really can't. It's not possible. You can run into someone else's planet. They've been discovering.
So basically, the key is it's not Eve.
There is an online factor, though. I was gonna mention that too. He said that there is some kind of online playability.
Okay.
I don't know how that plays in, though.
You bring up an interesting game because Eve, to me, just has a bad rap. I've never played it, but it seems like when people talk about it,
some people love Eve, and some people have nothing to do with Eve. And I'm in the latter group. I looked at it when it first came out, and I said, "Wow, this is going to be absolutely no fun to me." But there are people who love it, and those are people who like to game the system. And that's exactly the what's happened with it. It's developed. Well, for one, it's a huge universe, but it's turned into a system where some people have learned how to make money. Some people have learned how to form factions. There's whole trading guilds. It's really about galactic commerce and piracy. That's the baseline of Eve, from what I understand. And No Man's Sky is not that. No Man's Sky is about exploration, and it's about, you know, finding things and having an experience for you as an individual. Not so much, you know, how can I figure out how to make my fleet make tons and tons of money and be awesome.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Well, good.
Yeah, you can use people's resources, for instance, like you have to obtain knowledge, right, to make different protections, right? You don't just come with these weapons. You have to learn about this technology, and one of the ways in the game how you learn about this technology is by finding different cultures of people that are, you know, there's different aliens that have, you know, more intelligence. There's different fighting skills, and certain ones, you know, they vary in different life skills in that sense, and you go and learn from these people in the whole space exploration thing. So that's what's really cool, is it truly is an exploration game where you're learning things and you're, you know, adapting to your environment and assimilating yourself.
That actually sounds like a really amazing game. It really does.
Yeah, it sounds really cool.
I know this is what's going to get me to buy a PS4. That's
it's really awesome too that it is a PC game. So, I mean, at first I thought, when I first heard about it, I thought it was solely for PS4, and I was excited because, you know, I do have a PS4. But when I heard it was a PC game, I was like, wow, that's really gonna, you know, exponentiate the expansion of that game, because, you know, everyone nowadays has a PC, you know.
So is it going to be like dedicated PC game? I mean, obviously it's coming out on the platforms, on the consoles as well. Is it going to be like Steam based, or is it just, you know, just a PC game, or is it PS4, Xbox, Steam, everything?
I'm reading this.
I've just heard PS4 and PC.
So I'm looking at the about information that's online, and it's talking about that it's digitally be available on PSN for the PS4. For PC, it's Steam, Humble, I Am 8-Bits, Exclusive Explorers Edition, and then GOG.com. But I think Steam is pretty much used by a lot of folks, right? So that's, I think, the way that we would get the game. I'm very curious to know more about how they're going to market it, because I'll tell you, at this point, from my perspective, their marketing has been pretty weak.
Yeah, I hadn't heard a lot about it. You're right.
Yeah, and so either they're trying to keep it mysterious on purpose, or, you know, what they do with movies that sometimes are struggling is they don't talk a whole lot about it, and they don't bring information out, and they don't even screen it for people because they want to, you know, wait as long as they can. So unless they're still working on development on this thing, which at this point it seems like they'd be wrapping it up, but I like the idea. I'm more scared that it is such a large, huge, infinite universe that to be playing by yourself, that's pretty daunting. So hopefully there is an online element to it. I personally hope that there is. But I'm just surprised that the PR isn't bigger on it.
Yeah, there has to be some kind of interactive thing, because one of the kind of expos he was showing the gameplay, for instance, the designer, I forgot the gentleman's name, but he was showing how, you know, you could be flying through space and you see a battle going on, and you can, you know, fly right by it, you can go engage, you can take sides. You know, taking sides on one side will have a certain result, taking sides on another side will have another result. So who knows, maybe, you know, someone, you know, another player, for instance, can be taking sides on one of those ships, you know, and you're interacting with another player. That seems realistic, you know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so I wonder how that's going to play out, definitely.
I think it's going to be a popular game. I mean, I could be wrong, but
I think people are going to jump on it. It depends on whether or not it lives up to the hype. I think that's going to be really the key. People have been waiting for it. And what's hurt it has been the delays. You know, there'll be a big release and people will talk about it, and then it's like, well, okay, great, super. When's it coming out? Oh, we don't have a release date. So then it's like, all right, and you know, so it's done that. It's done that 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, I don't know what the big delay is. If it's like technical issues, if, you know, it's designing issues, if, you know, it's such a big project that they're constantly running into so many bugs, like, you know, Jerome was talking about.
Well, yeah, and at this point, I think if you talk to any big marketing department, they would tell you that you want to ride that momentum as best you can, because every time you have that false start, now all of a sudden people are thinking of it like it being an old game because we've been hearing about it for so long now. Oh, isn't it out? Oh, it's not out yet? You know, that whole thing. And marketing departments really strive to keep that momentum going and building, and if they don't do that successfully, it can really, really damage the launch. So again, we'll see what happens, and maybe it'll come out and be awesome. I like the premise of it myself. And maybe I would get a PS4 for it. But I need to hear more about what people think of it for sure at this point.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Is my mic on?
Yes.
Please. It's on. Okay. All right. I think this is a perfect time to toss it over to James, who's been, seems like he's been very, very quiet, but he does want to talk about Overwatch.
Well, yeah. I mean, who doesn't?
I'm seriously right. Show me your shirt.
There's a lot of hype around Overwatch. This is such a great shirt.
It's such a great shirt.
Sweet.
You know, I want to talk about it because I'm not an FPS player. Like I have tried so many times in the past. Like I did enjoy Halo, but I enjoyed Halo from a campaign perspective. I never enjoyed multiplayer, co-op, or PvP parts of Halo. Never really got into Call of Duty beyond basic campaign and storyline, and was a little bit hesitant when I first tried Overwatch a couple of years ago. No, it probably wasn't a couple of years ago. It was right before we announced at BlizzCon, so a year and a half ago. And it's fascinating to me that for Blizzard's first attempt at a wide-scale FPS that is improving on ideas that have existed for a long time, how engaging it is to me as somebody who traditionally doesn't enjoy that kind of game. The idea of an FPS team brawler, when you're not very good at it, is intimidating and boring because you just end up dying a lot. But I don't think I've ever had so much fun dying as I have when I play Overwatch. And I'm still not good at it. I mean, I'm not, there's no pretending that I have any time to try and get good at it. But I can jump in and play for a couple hours like I did yesterday, today, and just have a good time. And I think the reason is that what Blizzard have done with Overwatch is created an incredibly broad game that appeals to all levels of play style for an FPS that seems to transcend a skill ability. And when it's coupled with the matchmaking system that does a pretty decent job of matchmaking you with people of similar skill, you end up having a really fun experience. And I'm at a point now where, I've played a handful of different characters, both against AI and against kind of what they call quick play, which is a 6v6 player versus player game mode. And it makes me want to explore the characters more. And I'm really excited about this. Obviously, working for Blizzard, to have this game coming out with such interest. This weekend, that team were running a stress test weekend, so there's been a lot of players in and playing the game. And I just a couple of days ago noticed that Taco Bell apparently are carrying Overwatch on their soda cups. So we've got some kind of marketing push going there. It's really, really fascinating to me and exciting to see a hype built around a game that is a brand new territory for Blizzard. Brand new IP, new universe, new characters. Isn't building off of WoW or StarCraft or Diablo in any way. And already is very, very exciting. So, and again, just kind of the multi-platform thing that we were just talking about with No Man's Sky. This is multi-platform. It's PC and Xbox One and PS4. So I think there's a lot of reach for the game, and I'm excited. May 24th it releases. I'm very excited to see how it goes and see what the, not just from a sales point of view, but see what the gaming community's opinion of the game is.
And graphically, it looks a lot like it has the flavor of a WoW design artistically. Is that accurate?
Well, Blizzard's never really been known for its realism in art. It's always gone for kind of a cartoony look to a lot of things, like even in the high fantasy stuff in Diablo, and some of the kind of concept art that's around from StarCraft and World of Warcraft, and actually particularly StarCraft Ghost, the vaporware game that never got released. it's got that Blizzard flavor, certainly. I would say that this is a little more cartoony. It's along the same kind of lines as like a Team Fortress 2. There was a game by Red 5 Studios called Firefall, which is a very, very similar art style. Bright colors, very dynamic, engaging environments. From the animation point of view, it's just a lot of fun. You know, you fire a rocket into something and you see some serious explosion, and it's kind of cool like that.
Yeah, I don't mean it to be a bad thing. I personally like the cartoon style, that look. I personally really like that, so I didn't mean that to be a bad thing. Looking at just
I don't think it is, and I think that you're just touching on, like, it is kind of that that unofficial trademark of Blizzard, right? Like,
right.
There's a lot of games out there that try and be. I remember Ion from a few years ago. That was an MMO that tried very hard to be an extremely realistic game. And you look at maybe some other Activision titles like Call of Duty, there's extreme realism that is brought into the art to the point where you're not sure if you're looking at CG or if you're looking at like a video, a film.
Yeah, and personally, my take on that, I mean, Call of Duty, for me, for that very reason, is very uncomfortable to watch.
Right.
Although I like to play it, and I have played it, it's just, the realism becomes a little bit too much for me. And again, it's probably because I'm getting older and I've got children. But I remember back when Marathon came out, and we're talking back in '94, I think was when we played Marathon 2, if I'm not mistaken. And to me, what I just saw for Overwatch was that it has that sort of gameplay style to it, from what I can see from gameplay, but the visuals of WoW. So that, to me, I'm already sold on it. I think that sounds really cool. My only concern is there going to be microtransactions? Do you know if that's what Blizzard is expecting to put into the game?
I don't remember what has been announced publicly. I know Jeff Kaplan has talked a little bit about the business model. So I don't want to comment on it in case I say something that I shouldn't say. Obviously, I'm not representing Blizzard here.
Sure, understood.
But I mean, obviously, it's a box product. We know that you can pre-order it. I imagine there's going to be some microtransactional element of the game, right? Like, we're still a business. We're still going to monetize it somehow. I do think that Jeff said that when you buy the box product, you get all the heroes. And I know there are other games out there where you buy a base box product, you might get 50% of the heroes, and then you can microtransaction your way through to additional heroes or characters, or even use kind of in-game earned currency for that as the slow way around. And I know that isn't the strategy that Jeff wanted to take with this game. That Blizzard, that's not kind of the precedent that it appears to me that's not a precedent that they want to set. By creating, that would almost create a pay-to-win scenario if you can buy more powerful characters or heroes. So I do love that all heroes are available to all players right from the get-go. And some of the differences in the editions, like one of the editions you can buy is the Origins edition, which explores a little bit of the backstory of just a few of the key characters that have become the face of the game, and you just get some interesting skins and interesting emotes and interesting voice lines with those. And if I was to guess anything, like, I would see that might be an area in which microtransactional stuff could be introduced. Like, you could, I guess, potentially buy emotes or buy skins or buy new kind of voice lines for your characters, victory lines, that kind of thing. And there's a little bit of a precedent in that in Hearthstone, in the shop there. Like, you can buy new heroes for your class. So, like, you get a base hunter, which I forget who it is, but then you can buy a different hunter hero. You get all the same capabilities, but you get different skin, you get different voice acting, that kind of thing. And I think, if anything, right off the bat when this releases, I imagine that could be an area in which microtransactions will be introduced fairly swiftly.
But the thing you talked about that really resonated with me is you mentioned that the pairing of skill set was really intelligent about how they go about making your competitors equal on your playing field. And you seem to be really struck by how good that was. Is that true?
Well, yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of hard work. Well, that's not the right term. A lot of intelligence has been applied to how that matchmaking system has been designed. That's what it seems to me. as a novice player who I've probably clocked up only 3 or 4 hours in the game total, so there's not a lot of trended data from my account to be used. It seems to be, when I hit that quick play button, it seems to put me in groups and against other groups of a similar skill set. I'm not getting completely slaughtered every time. I'm dying, yes, but I'm also getting as many kills as I am dying, maybe a few more kills. And so I think that that's really going to be key to keeping a player base engaged in the long run. I will probably get better at the game over time as I play it more, and maybe on certain characters and not others. And so I expect then that will affect the matchmaking results that I get. But I think that it's a key thing. And when it's compared to other match-made game systems out there for FPS, I mean, I remember when I played Team Fortress 2, I gave it up after about a week because I was just getting, I'd get in a game and suddenly it's, these level 60, level 70 guys that have clearly got more time in FPS in general and are better at that game style, just absolutely killing me, and it removed the fun. And so I think the fact that one of the core things about Blizzard's games is that Blizzard always talk about keeping the fun factor. I remember an interview that Chris Metzen did right after the announcement that Titan was being shelved and how Overwatch kind of grew out of Titan, and he said we just couldn't find the fun with Titan. It was a good game. Like I did some of the early play tests. I was very privileged enough to play some of that and see some of that early work, and the concept was great. But he was right. Like, it's a hard thing to try and identify this immeasurable, unquantifiable thing called fun and have that represented consistently in a game. And that's everything from style of game, character story, interaction, how it looks, how it feels, through to some of the back-end mechanics, like how do we matchmake people? What are our philosophies for coding a networked game? There was a great video that a couple of the devs released a couple of weeks ago that talked about their netcode philosophy and how one of the key philosophies that they apply when designing this was we will always favor the shooter. And that's just a way of controlling how you deal with things like latency and lag in an online game where milliseconds make all the difference between a kill and a no-kill. And that's just fascinating to me, but it introduces a little more intelligence into that fun factor. And I think that Overwatch is just another example of how Blizzard have really put a focus on making games fun for everyone.
So Overwatch it's not the type of game where you as a noob start playing and there's a bunch of guys like crowded around the spawn point just like annihilating you as soon as you show up.
Those are the best games. Those games, just you want to play them all.
Why does this not surprise me that you like those, Carolina? Does not surprise me.
Oh my gosh, no! I
is.
freaking hate that. Those are the worst games. Like, oh my god. That's what I hate about Battlefront. Honestly, is like they have the worst respawning locations.
My brother is a hardcore Call of Duty player. I mean, hardcore. I cannot get into it. Cannot do it. I do not like it.
It's military murder porn.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, like it definitely has a genre.
So I think that to answer your question, though, Jason, is, I mean, it's not the kind of death and respawn mechanics. You respawn at your starting zone every time, and your starting zone, the other team can't infiltrate it. So you do get that time at least to get your bearings and get back to the action. But the game moves quite fast, and it's not the kind of game where any one player can really camp a particular area of the map, because they too will die just doing that. I mean, if somebody's camping in an area, if you're playing a sniper or something like that, you're just kind of perched up there, well, you're going to get found out and killed. So it really doesn't allow for it. And also the way you're introduced to the game, the first time you log in, you play through a really excellent tutorial that teaches you your basic mechanics. You only have 3 abilities, one of which has to charge up during the game, so you're playing with 2 main abilities that are on a cooldown. and it's your straight WASD directional control with a fire and a jump. And there's some interesting mechanics across even those abilities with some of the characters. But it is not complex. It's a very easy game to get into and to immediately start having fun. And if the idea of playing against other players is intimidating, there are 3 levels of AI as well that you can get into a group with 5 other players. It's a team of 6, so 5 other players, either with your friends or with strangers, and play against the AI. On an easy, medium, or hard level. So there's a lot of options there to just get people into the game and get comfortable with a style of play, a cast of characters, before you even have to start exploring the idea of strategy and avoiding being camped, that kind of thing.
Thanks, James.
Yeah, it sounds like an awesome game. I'm excited.
It's a lot of fun. I mean, like I said, I'm not an FPS player by any stretch of the imagination. I've deliberately avoided them for years. But this one, I just feel like I'm going to spend a lot of time. And it's got some cool built-in features as well. Like the Overwatch client has built-in voice connect, so you have voice chat with your group as well, which is really cool. So there's that like social element to it as well. It's fully integrated with Battle.net's social system. So those of you that have battle tags and you have your friends list, you have full access to that from within the game. So there's a lot of elements to this that make me very, very excited.
I like the graphics. I like the colors.
Yeah.
And Tracer, right?
Yep.
The gal, she seems to be getting a lot of cosplay attention too.
Yeah, she very quickly became the face of the game.
She did.
When Blizzard announced it at BlizzCon in 2014, one of the videos that was shown is of the character Tracer. That her famous line, kind of, "Don't worry, love, the cavalry's here," and that became a tagline very quickly. And certainly, marketing and PR have leveraged her popularity. And yeah, she's a really fun character, and actually, I feel like she embodies what Overwatch really is about in terms of a universe and a storyline. The whole thing is the world could always use more heroes. And like, what an incredibly positive statement to make in a world where most FPS video games are either, it's very combat driven or extremely violent, or in kind of post-apocalyptic worlds that don't have a lot of positive feeling to it. There's incredible positivity and hope that's just built into the nature of the Overwatch universe. And I feel like that's a continuing trend with Blizzard games as well. I mean, you really think about World of Warcraft, I mean, yes, the Horde versus Alliance thing, but ultimately it's a story of redemption and hope and deliverance. And Thrall's storyline alone, like finding his meaning in the universe.
Right.
And then you look at the StarCraft universe and the conflict between the Zerg and the Terran and the Protoss, and how there's this incredibly wonderful storyline about the kind of the moment of forgiveness between Reyna and Kerrigan.
Oh my God, that was so beautiful.
Spoiler alert, but like,
oh my
it's
God,
just wonderful storytelling.
Chills.
And then
it was
and then
so
Diablo,
good.
like fighting the forces of darkness through Sanctuary. Like what there's a lot of positivity to be found in Blizzard's games, and it is almost like concentrated and distilled in Overwatch, and I really, really love that.
I do have a YouTube.
Yeah, she's a badass character.
I do have a question from somebody on Twitter. It's okay, Caroline. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Do you want to say something?
No, I was just saying she's a badass character. I like Tracer.
Yeah, she's really fun to play as well.
Great,
I can't wait. We lost Kurt, but we'll continue.
Okay.
I think he just sent me a text message. Okay, James, my friend from Twitter would like to know about Blizzard addressing the idea that WoW, Diablo, and StarCraft are getting old.
I mean,
I don't know if that's kind of a difficult question to answer.
I can only address this from my personal perspective, right?
Of course,
like,
yes.
Disclaimer here, I am not speaking on behalf of Blizzard Entertainment. Are they old? Sure. Orcs and Humans was released in the mid-90s. That game is 20 years old. StarCraft was one of the early kind of second-gen RTSs around the time of Command and Conquer. And we think back like StarCraft 1, yeah, it's an old game. Diablo, shit, I was playing Diablo 2 when I was at college, and that was longer ago than I wish to think about. But yeah, I mean, are those universes old? Sure. But are they still story-rich? And are they still vibrant? Absolutely. I don't think that those universes have had all their story told. I mean, particularly World of Warcraft. I'm very, very excited about the future of WoW right now. There's a movie coming out in a couple of months that Duncan Jones has done a phenomenal job on telling this story of the first contact between the human race and the orc race, and that that struggle that Duratan had to find a home for his people, and then we've got the Legion expansion coming out that is a enrichment of the story of the Burning Legion. We're revisiting Illidan. He's coming back into the story after Burning Crusade. Like, there is so much life still in these titles because the story themselves are so rich, and that's represented in the number of novels that exist, some of the web animated shorts that we've done in the past for WoW, comic book series. There was a great StarCraft comic book series around Heart of the Swarm, and also how all of these universes tie into Blizzard's MOBA as well, into Heroes of the Storm. They're old, but only chronologically. I don't think that they're tired. I think that there is still a lot of life and a lot of gaming and a lot of exploration to do in these universes.
That's like saying, hey, Dungeons and Dragons is too old, Magic is too old. It needs something new. I mean, if the universe is robust enough and open enough, there's always room for more expansion just within it itself. There's characters that are there. Make new characters. It's a setting. It's not. It doesn't have to be dated.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's all how you approach it, right? Like, if you compare World of Warcraft today to World of Warcraft of when it was released 2004, it's a very, very different game. People will find the pros and the cons into the changes that Blizzard has made with World of Warcraft, but the fact of the matter is that game itself is coming up on 12 years old. It is still the #1 MMO in the world by a long shot. It is still an extremely successful game. It's still very, very engaging. The people that I talk to about Legion and about the movie, everyone seems very, very excited by it again, just as they were for Warlords and just as they were for Mists of Pandaria and all the prior expansions that have come. It's just a case of making sure that the way that content is explored and represented and placed in front of the player is still fun and relevant, and that the mechanics aren't tired. And the moment that happens, yeah, then maybe you've got an argument of like, well, this game feels like it's from 2004. I don't think that's true of World of Warcraft. I feel like World of Warcraft feels like it's a game from 2016.
It's one of those interesting things where people become very comfortable with how their game looks, and so there is some sort of comfort that comes with the fact that it still is the game that you've always loved, and you get the expansion packs, and so that adds some new content. For those hardcore players that are in it so much, I mean, it's really hard to keep it fresh for those people.
Yeah.
But I'm of the opinion that you keep the game sort of truthful to its core. And again, there is comfort in looking at it. And, for all the people out there, Zug, I mean, I loved Warcraft 2, right? That was just, I love that game so much, and I've got so many friends that love that game. And so it was fun to watch WoW come into being. But you're right, it's been out there for so long now. Some of the other games that are newer, League of Legends and also Witcher 3, these are games that are pretty popular right now, and it's because the worlds are new and the content looks great, and it's fresh for those hardcore gamers out there. I think that there's plenty of room for a lot of good games out there, but who hasn't heard World of Warcraft, right? I mean, that was just so massive.
Yeah.
And I know that there's some concern from hardcore gamers like Diablo seems to have suffered a little bit, but we all who are in the gaming industry just remember these games so vividly. I would be crushed if it was somehow morphed into something new to keep it fresh, and then all of a sudden it's not true to its own being, right? I mean, that's kind of how I look at it. So.
Yeah, and you also have to realize that a company like Blizzard, one of the great things that I love is in the courtyard, I don't know if any of you have ever been on Blizzard campus, but in the courtyard, there's a giant statue of an orc riding a wolf wielding a battle axe, right? It's a 13-foot statue, and it's amazing. But on the floor, on the ground around it, are the 8 core values that everything that Blizzard does is guided by. And one of those values is gameplay first. That the decisions we make about everything have to be prioritizing the gameplay. And I think that really that kind of points to what you're talking about, Jerome, is like the moment that the essence of a game is compromised for the sake of keeping it fresh, the motivation behind doing it is all screwed up. And Blizzard is so intentional about staying true to its core values that it is led to the success of the length of World of Warcraft, for example. And the fact that this will be expansion number, this is expansion number 6, and I have every reason to believe it's going to be extremely successful, a lot of fun, a lot of content, but it's because it's all guided by those core values. And when you're talking about a studio where everyone within the walls, speaking of my own personal experience, is equally as passionate about everything that goes on, nobody's making those compromises. And the areas where there's debate and disagreement and conflict only ever come up as a positive thing anyway, because they exist because people really care. People really want us to put out, and I'm talking people within the walls of Blizzard, we want to put out the absolute very best game we can. And I say that of myself. I go to work every day during the week wanting to do the very best job that I can, because I want to release a game that I as a gamer would like to keep playing. And I know that that's true of other people in the company as well, like peers of mine, good friends of mine that have been around for years, and it trickles down from the top. Mike and Frank, and even Medson's been there for a long time. I mean, he's basically the core essence and culture of Blizzard. But if it wasn't for those guys being as passionate as they were the day they started the company, I don't think Blizzard would be what it is today. But that passion is still there, and it's evident in the quality of games like WoW and Heroes and Overwatch and all the new stuff that we're doing that isn't compromising the core of the idea that it was created from.
For me, I don't think World of Warcraft is getting old. That's just my personal opinion. I've been playing for 7 years. I took a break because of school. I just don't feel that it's getting old. When I log in and I start playing my Death Knight, and for the Horde, by the way.
Yes.
Horde all the way.
Yes.
Used to be Alliance. Screw that. Horde all the way. So.
I'm afraid we can't be friends.
For the Horde.
Oh, that's
somebody
a
said they couldn't. Somebody said they couldn't see me. Hello.
No, there you are. We can see you now. But I am so excited about Legion coming out.
Yeah.
I mean, we're doing basically. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, James. I don't know how much you could say about it, but we're kind of going back to Burning Crusades a little bit.
Well, Illidan was the main antagonist through Burning Crusade, right? And everyone remembers his "You are not prepared" line, and the whole epic Black Temple fight against Illidan. That anyone who ever played a hunter, myself, I main as a hunter, and I have probably downed Illidan there 200 times because I really want the Star's Fury bow to drop, and it's never dropped for me. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's not so much like we're going back in time and revisiting the storyline. Okay. This is a natural progression from Warlords. There is a direct tie-in to how the endgame content of Warlords leads into kind of Illidan being freed from his prison.
Right.
And how the introduction of the Demon Hunter class, obviously that's now the second heroic class, Death Knight being the first, bring in Demon Hunters and their storyline about their place in the Burning Legion and the choice that you as a character have to make to kind of be a part of the Illidari collective,
Right.
or to rebel against Illidan's ideals and fight for something different, is really excellent. But again, I feel like this points back to the core of the game is still there. Illidan is a massive part of the universe. And even prior to World of Warcraft, I think it was his first appearance was in Warcraft 3. I don't recall.
I think you're right. I think it is Warcraft 3 because that's when he fought Arthas.
Yes, right. This was prior to the Frozen Throne expansion.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, just the fact that we're revisiting this character, that there's still such depth of storyline, and I think it does appeal to those of us who have been around WoW for a long time. I've played since 2005, and so I was there through Burning Crusade, and it's fascinating to me to go back. And when I found out what we were doing for this expansion and that it was going to be Legion-based, the Burning Legion were going to kind of be a very central part to it, that was very, very exciting to me. Pandas didn't excite me. I loved Mr. Pandaria. I thought it was a wonderful expansion, but the storyline itself...
That was my least favorite one. I don't mean to cut you off, but that was my least favorite one.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I still enjoyed the content, and I liked the fact that Pandaria itself was a nice break from the war-torn lands of Azeroth, where particularly after Cataclysm, where things had been very dark and contentious for a long time, and now here's Pandaria, which is kind of a very zen, very light, very kind of almost Buddhist value-driven place, where it's an appreciation for life, and the whole slow down thing was just like, I found that incredibly appealing, right up until Garrosh came through and started tearing the place up.
And that's when I started to like it, because there was destruction and death and and dark.
But that's the core of World of Warcraft, right? Like, I feel like Pandaria was a nice break in that story, and it was interesting, and I did have fun with it. But honestly, Wrath of the Lich King was and still is my favorite expansion. Absolutely love that. But I think Legion, as it comes up, nice. And you're wearing your Knights of the Ebon Blade t-shirt as well, which is Wrath era. Yes. But Wrath was fantastic, and
it was the best expansion. I don't care.
I'm just really excited because I feel like Legion is going to capture that same feeling in the game that Wrath brought, where it's very engaging. I mean, we're all going back to Dalaran, and that's going to be very much a central city again. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think it's going to be super exciting, super engaging. I'm also really interested to see what happens as a result of the movie coming out, and seeing if that props up concurrencies or subscriptions in any way, piques people's interests that haven't played the game but see the movie. I think there's going to be some interest around that as well.
Can I ask some question, James? What is the date then for the movie release again, and are they timing any releases of expansions with WoW to coincide with the movie by any chance?
So the movie is coming out, I believe it's May 28th in Europe, June 10th in North America and the rest of the world. As far as I am aware, there is no direct game-to-movie tie-in. My best guess would be that there will be some marketing promotional stuff that occurs. I mean, I can't imagine that we're going to release this movie and not have a World of Warcraft presence in the movie theaters, for example. But I'm not aware that there are any kind of release dates tied around the movie release dates for the game or anything.
Is there any early buzz from people at Blizzard that have seen maybe anything to say that it's really well done, that it's true to the nature of the brand, or?
Yeah, I think that was one of the key things that a lot of people took away from the trailer that we showed at BlizzCon, and some of the additional material that has been shown officially online, is that Duncan Jones, I think, was the third or fourth director that signed on to make this movie, because one thing that was really, really important to the executive production team about concerning the movie was that it has to be a Blizzard quality product, and it has to have the same heart, and it has to have the same kind of, you look at this thing and instantly you know that this is Blizzard quality, that this has got that level of polish to it. And Duncan Jones, one cool thing that Blizzard do for employees is that about 3 times a year they get the entire Irvine-based company together, and we go to a giant venue. It's typically a very large movie theater, and they have this thing called Show and Tell, which is where each team will put on display before the company like what each team is working on. So that's kind of like our early knowledge, like the early things that we get to see about some of the future content for each of the franchises and for the platform, that kind of thing. And Duncan Jones came to one of these last year, and he showed us the trailer that was played at BlizzCon, and he showed us some of the early CG and stuff like that. And the impression that I got when he stood up in front of everyone, he was just the most humble human being that couldn't express his gratitude enough that he was allowed to make this movie. He had played Blizzard games since he was a kid. You know, his dad being who he was, you know, being on tour a lot. You know, David Bowie's on stage, Duncan Jones is playing video games in the tour bus, and he was playing Warcraft, and he was playing StarCraft, and he was playing Diablo, and he played World of Warcraft, and then later on as a movie maker, he expressed the desire. One of the things he said was that he has always had a desire to make something in a Blizzard universe, and so for us, I think. You know, it's very common knowledge that Blizzard has seen Duncan Jones as the perfect fit for making a movie on the scale and grandiosity as Warcraft deserves. And when we're coupled with a great production company like Legendary Pictures that have done amazing things in vast universes before, Lord of the Rings springs to mind, the stuff that they did with that universe and the way that they kind of built it and created it and published it and supported it. I mean, I think from top to bottom, everyone at Blizzard, myself included, are feeling like there's a movie on our hands that everyone is going to be very, very proud of. And for me, the stuff that I have seen is that this is not a video game movie. This is just a good, solid story. It's just a good movie. And you don't need any background, any knowledge of the game, any kind of prior experience or exposure to the universe to be able to go, get it, enjoy it, and really dig it. And I think that's going to be a key thing to the success of it as well.
Yeah, that's a really... Go ahead, Rochelle.
Sorry, just really quick. Is this going to be the only one, or is there plans to do the different, I mean, going up to Arthas and Jaina, getting into, you know, Thrall and Mancrick's wife? I mean, yeah. Is it?
I don't know. Is the honest answer. I really don't know. For me personally, there's so much richness in the Warcraft universe that it could certainly warrant more movies. But I honestly don't know if that is planned or not. Whether it's a case of let's do one and wait and see how it goes, or whether there is already a roadmap. I have absolutely no idea. I know nothing has been talked about publicly, and certainly if there's any internal conversations going on, I'm not aware of it. But then in my position, I wouldn't be anyway.
I was going to say that my biggest concern is that you know, it's tricky to appeal to both audiences, right? So to have anybody that's not into the game go see the movie and be able to be told an interesting story and to see visually the stunning graphics that I'm sure is just going to be mind-boggling. That's one way of storytelling and movie making, and then you've got the hardcore folks who are going to want to go see it and are going to have their expectations set really high. And those folks are going to be tricky because they're so used to being immersive in the environment that they're going to sit back and have to watch it. And that's going to be, I think, kind of interesting to see how, you know, the movie folks are trying to pull that off. Because again, that's both ends of the spectrum then. So it's going to be hard to please both groups. If they pull it off, then that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key things that, I mean, I'm confident about that because the guy who directed it it was a serious World of Warcraft player, so he understood that. One of the great moments for me, I mean, you know, I've been rolling around in some of these cities in Dalaran and Stormwind and Orgrimmar for years now in a virtual world, and the first time that I saw them come to life on a screen with real people in them, and you know, this great scene in the first trailer is Anduin in Stormwind Cathedral. And you look at it and you go, holy cow, it's actually Stormwind Cathedral. And I think that those are the points where you're going to get the really immersed players connecting with a point of identity within the game of like, whoa, like real life Dalaran is incredible. It's how I imagined it would be. But it's not so overwhelming that somebody who's brand new to the universe couldn't understand the importance of that too.
Good, that makes me happy because like I don't have really any background on WoW. I mean, I know people that play it and stuff. I know a little bit about it, but the movie does look really cool, and I would be really interested in learning more about the game through the movie. You know, I mean, just because it's about the story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm
So
very,
it's
very
gonna be
excited
cool.
for it.
I know I am too. Now, Jerome, you didn't really get to talk too much about your work history, or
I don't think anybody's really that interested in it personally. But I just think that there's a huge history that exists with game development. And so I'm really old school. I started playing video games when I was 10, 11, 12, that time frame. And we've watched the technology just really grow so quickly, relatively speaking. We have gone from large pixel race cars in Indy 500 on the Atari 2600 to photorealistic, games where you drive cars that just look stunning. And so that's a huge growth in how technology has really catapulted us forward with some tremendous hardware that can put out some just beautiful images. And gameplay-wise, we're all over the map, right? So we have the first-person shooters, we've got the RPGs, we've got MMOs that a lot of people really seem to have been taken over by. I mean, there's people that are just devoting their entire lives to playing these things to the point where maybe it's even unhealthy. But with anything, if you spend the appropriate amount of time on it, I think that you can have a lot of fun with the games. And as we talked about tonight, there's just a huge variety of things out there for people to interact with. And I believe that playing the games with friends, be it online or board games, that's the key, right? You just want to have fun, socialize. Jason said it. You want to, shoot the crap with what happened at work today, but it's a lot of fun to get down and just play games. And playing games, I think, is what is, I think, something that maybe we miss from a social, interactive, face-to-face sort of environment that not a whole lot of people do anymore. Families don't do a whole lot of anymore. And how often do you see people with iPads at the dinner table, right? And everybody's in their own little space. So I would just like to say that, from somebody that has been surrounded by people that play games, love games, design games, just live games and breathe games, there's a lot of passion out there. You can see James talk about what he works in right now and how everybody's so devoted to trying to provide the best product that they possibly can, because there's audiences out there that just eat this stuff up and live it and are very proud of the games that they like, proud of the characters that they build. You can watch Rochelle talk about her characters and you can just see her light up. And I think that's a lot of fun, and that's where the reward is for all the people that work in the industry. I released a lot of games while working at Sony PlayStation. GTA, Grand Theft Auto, I love that game, but I like the game for a different reason. I think it's one of the best driving simulators ever, and I just think it's visually stunning. All the other things.
I love the driving in that game too. Thank you. I mean, you can
awesome.
just fly off a bridge, do 360s, and then land it like you're skateboarding in a car. Love it.
It's one of the best driving games out there, and I think that people focus too much on the bad stuff, and I just love to just drive around, and visually it's just stunning. So
you can be in fly cars all the time.
Yep. So there's just a lot of games out there. I've worked on a lot of games myself. Some games have not done well. Some games have done well, and there's nothing more satisfying than to have people come up to you and say, "Oh, I love that game," and they don't know that you worked on it, and that's just very, very rewarding. So I think that the industry is still doing well. There's a lot of product out there right now. We've got, the mobile devices are sort of mixing things up a little bit right now. We got people that are, hardcore gamers and others that are just casual gamers, and that's fine. I think that, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's healthy, and it's good to have all of those challenges, and we'll see where it goes from here. And then we're going to see what VR does right now as Carmack brings out Oculus, right? So let's see what happens there. It's just an exciting time, but I would like to see people get back to more of the face-to-face board game style interaction as well. I don't think you have to give up the online MMOs, but I would just like to see you, interact with the family more and roll some dice and get the Jasons out there saying, D&D is fun, and I like to interact with my friends and be creative. Don't be afraid of being creative and creating your own stuff. That's a lot of fun too. So
that's the best part. I mean, that's my personal opinion, but that's the best part of it is to exercise your own creativity.
Yeah.
Your gaming session should not be the same as anybody else's gaming session.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, how many things in this world can you control? I mean, it's so nice to go into your own little imagination, and create this little alternate universe,
Yeah. So I just wanted to mention to everybody out there that's watched us that it's been a lot of fun this evening. We're going to put links, I think, in the description that talks about any of the products that we've mentioned here, and so that you can follow up if you have any question about any of the games we mentioned, or you didn't catch what the title was or whatever. We'll do our best to get some information out there for you to follow up on your own time if you're interested, and just wanted to say that.
I think we need to give James like a couple of minutes so he could talk about his little gadget.
It's like total tangent now. I almost don't even want to talk about it. I'm so into this gaming thing.
No, I got a.
You want me to talk about it, or do we save it for another day?
I actually got a couple DMs talking about how great you were talking about Blizzard and Overwatch, and a lot. There's quite a few people who were very, very impressed with that and appreciated the information. So thank you for that.
Sure, I'm glad I could be a part of that.
But I think that you should talk about your little.
All right. So here's the thing that I've gotten like more and more into is this idea of wearable tech, right? I have an Apple Watch. Like, I love this thing. It tells me my heart rate. I can communicate watch to watch with other people who have Apple Watches. I absolutely love the idea that technology on my body is now a thing. And so a couple of weeks ago, about three weeks ago, there's a podcast I listened to called, I forget which one it is now, I think it was Note to Self. And Note to Self is kind of this podcast about the interaction and the intersection of technology and life. And they explore all kinds of things in this podcast, but they were exploring this this little gadget called Think. That, me being me, like, I'm generally very skeptical, and I was skeptical about it to the point of like, I'm not going to make a decision until I get to try it. And so I then tried it, and in one session I was convinced enough that I went and bought one for myself. So this device here, this is called Think, T-H-Y-N-C. They're on Twitter at THYNC, think.com, and essentially what this device is, I'm actually going to wear it and put it on here in just a moment. The whole premise behind this, it is a device that's been developed through MIT, a bunch of neuroscientists, neurosurgeons, some peer review happening University of Illinois, Chicago, and the whole thing that drove this was the idea that right now, in order to induce states of mind and states of being, we do things like take a pill or smoke a cigarette or drink alcohol. And wouldn't it be great if we could generate the same symptomatic end result of those things in a digital and clean way without having to ingest something to bring that state of mind on? So they kind of took the idea of essentially the same tech of a echocardiogram, but instead of reading electrical impulses around your body, it will induce and pulse in an electrical stimulant at two very specific places. So I'm actually going to put this on right now. And the way, I just need to make sure I'm placing this correctly. And it sits just above the eyebrow right here. And then you'll see this little dangly thing. This particular one will sit at the back of the base of my neck, which I'll put on right here. And there's actually two strips. This one here is another one where instead of the base of the neck, it'll actually be right behind my earlobe here. And what this device does is it'll pair with an app on my phone, and it creates these things that their marketing term for it. I'm going to switch it on here. Should see it switch on. Yeah. They create this, their marketing term for it is, they call it a vibe. And there are two different vibes. There's a calm vibe, there's an energetic vibe, and there's this third thing, they say fitness, but ultimately it's just a different type of calm or energy. And the idea behind this is to induce a state of, perhaps you want to get into a state of motivation, or you need to be more focused or attentive, or you want to kind of calm down and zone out and get kind of more of a blissful state before you go to sleep. And what this will do, this is now paired via Bluetooth to my phone, and I will select a calm vibe. I don't know if the screen will show this, but you can see I have different options here. There's like sleep, there's good night, there's bliss. The one that says bliss is relaxation with a dose of intoxication. So I'm going to select that, and then I can select my intensity. I happen to get most benefit at around 80% intensity. And what this is doing right now is I can feel almost like a buzzing vibration here and at the back of my neck and underneath this, and it is just pulsing electricity at two very specific points that will almost create that induced state of bliss that normally would take me a couple of glasses of wine to achieve. Relaxes me, puts me out. In conjunction with this, I have been using a sleep cycle tracking app as well. And since using this on the nights that I put on a calm vibe right before I go to sleep, I get better sleep. And we talked a little bit about this last week when we were just kind of hanging out. A friend of mine pointed out that this could be 100% placebo. It could all be in my mind. Yes, and I'm totally okay with that, because if it still gets me the same results where I'm sleeping better, or I go to work feeling more focused and more motivated, or I do this before a workout and I run a little bit faster, I'm okay if it's only placebo. The data to me is suggesting that there actually is some science to this that is not just placebo, and the way that the company itself are going about this is once my vibe finishes, I get to rate it, and there's a free-form field where I can connect with what they call a vibe expert and provide a little more information. And they're data gathering. They're essentially using this as a very large-scale beta test to really validate and see if this as a lifestyle product actually has a little more validity in even the home consumer medical field. And I think it's very interesting considering the context of this podcast. Is one common symptom of long duration space travel is it's a little difficult to sleep. Astronauts on the ISS, what if there was a device like this, it's actually falling off my head right now, that can just help induce a lightweight sleep state that improves lifestyle up there as well. I think that there is going to be some really interesting results that come out of this. It's $200, so it is a little bit of an outlay up front, but I don't have an ounce of regret about this. I think it is an amazing piece of technology.
I have a question. It's not even about how it works, but does it fall off when you sleep?
You don't sleep with it on. You just keep this on 15 minutes.
Okay.
It'll get me sleepy, and then I'm kind of in that kind of more calm, more zen state for a peaceful night's sleep, but I fall asleep extremely quickly. Like, even we're now only 3 minutes into this, and like I can already feel myself getting a little bit like drowsy.
Seriously.
That's probably That's probably because Kurt's not talking. Because if Kurt talked, then we'd all just wake right up. No, I have a question. Are there any skins for it? Because like if you could make it look like the Terminator, like you had metal under your skin, or that'd be awesome.
I mean, this is This is version 1.0. All you get is white with black strips. You can replace these as well. It comes with 5 of each type. Obviously, the stickiness wears off, so you can either replace them or you can get like a conductive adhesive gel like this, which is the same thing that is used in the medical field to give it an little extra life. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's so new. It's a brand new piece of tech, and there's a lot of skepticism around it. And I think it is going to take a little while to prove the technology and prove that there's actual benefit for this. I can only speak through my own experiences, and I know that I get benefit from it. But does that scale? Well, we're going to have to wait and see. But perhaps it does scale, and perhaps somewhere down the line, Think do introduce this as consumer medical mass marketed thing where you can start branding this. You know, I mean, I'm a huge LA Galaxy fan. I wouldn't be opposed to having an LA Galaxy logo right here.
I was gonna say that. Like, I just picture, a big Nike swoosh, just.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so many opportunities with that piece of hardware,
Yeah. It's really interesting. I think that there's all kinds of kind of different paths that this could take, and particularly with the idea that there are different uses for it as well, to induce different states. I mean, think about people who suffer from anxiety or ADD and that take pills every day just to manage that. Perhaps in lower level cases where it's a little milder, medication ultimately might be able to be replaced with something that isn't introducing a chemical into your bloodstream but is using your body's own natural productivity capabilities to induce these states without kind of a chemical catalyst to it. I think there's some really fascinating avenues that this could lead.
And the device again, James, does it talk to your Apple Watch? I'm just curious.
It doesn't talk to the Apple Watch, no. It just pairs with Bluetooth to your phone. It's iOS and Android. So there's the companion app that you absolutely need to have your companion app, otherwise it doesn't work. But that's kept up to date, and it keeps a history. So, for example, if I go back tomorrow and use this same vibe again, it'll tell me yesterday when you did this, or the last time you used this, you had your setting at 80%. So there's reference to it as well, so that if I feel like it wasn't effective enough, I now can have a reminder of like, well, it wasn't effective at 80%, maybe I'll bump that up to 82 or 85, and just kind of see how it feels. And it is different for everyone as well. I wouldn't expect it to be kind of a one-size-fits-all device.
So essentially, even if it is a placebo effect, if it's helping somebody not have to take the pills and it's helping them fall asleep, then it's a good thing, regardless.
Yeah, I mean, I see. The only situation in which I think it's not a good thing is if this was harmful to me.
Exactly, and that's was my concern when you first had showed it to me, is that being on your head, what kind of long-term effects is it going to have?
Right. Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm okay in being part of the group that starts kind of collecting data on that for review. And Thinker, actually, they're being very transparent about it. They actually are going to go after an FDA approval on this, but that takes a very long time to get, and you need a lot of data, and so that's why it's being marketed as a lifestyle device and not a medical device right now. But, when it comes to things like the placebo effect, I was actually listening to another podcast just this week. I think it was the same Note to Self podcast that was looking at a study involving a surgeon that did a particular type of back surgery to fix cracked vertebrae. And that in almost as many cases of actual surgeries being successful, there were the same number of cases where a patient was put on the table, they were given the anesthetic, like everything up to actually getting the surgery, and being told that they had the surgery when they hadn't, and there still being a placebo effect, and they got up and walked out of the hospital. So for me, placebo effect is beneficial as well, and I'm okay with that if this is all in my head and it's all an idea. If it is beneficial to me, I accept it.
I agree with you. And if it keeps somebody from having to take medication that could be harmful, and that's not.
Yeah, I mean, and
seeing
it's
more
it's
of it.
a very strange thing for me to do a 180 on a device like this because I am naturally very skeptical of
Right.
things that make very bold claims like this, and I needed to use it to be able to get behind it. And now, after about 3 weeks of use, I use it at least once a day, often twice a day. When I get up in the morning, as I'm sat drinking my coffee, I'll put on a kind of one of the more focused, motivating vibes, and then at night, just to help me relax before I go to sleep. I personally am seeing some good results with it.
Good. That's good. I think I'm glad that you showed it, because if it can help somebody and doesn't hurt them, then I think it's a good thing.
I'm not paid by Think either. This is not
No, you're
sponsored
not.
content.
Exactly.
This is just me being very excited about something that I think is very cool.
Just like Jerome's excited about his 3D glasses, but he can't see
Yeah.
3D.
Everything is better in 3D. Everything is better in 3D. You know it.
We're all in 3D.
Well, it looks like I think we've gone 2.5 hours. Does anybody have anything else to say or add to?
I want to
gaming show?
apologize to Alec. I mentioned that we might talk Kerbal, but Kerbal did not come up tonight.
Well, if we still have 9 people, if you want to, if you guys are awake and still want to, if you want to talk about it, you can.
I don't know that we can really do it justice much, but I will say that if you're into space stuff, no matter how mild of an interest you have or how advanced, Kerbal Space Program is a great program. It really gives you an idea of a good physics demonstration of what spaceflight is like. I mean, it's not totally accurate, but it's pretty darn close. So
I think we should devote a night to talking just Kerbal, because it could really be a very interesting discussion and tie it in with space. That's what I think.
Okay.
We could do that. I did take a poll today, though. I do want Kurt. Can you find the picture?
Yeah. So hold on, after when the computer crashed when I was booting the troll, I lost everything. So let me.
Was it really bad?
The troll?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah, his stuff was terrible. So if you guys don't know, we had somebody spamming the YouTube chat window with a whole bunch of racial slurs and such. So it was bad. So I had to. I made the mistake of opening the chat window in the same browser that we're streaming from, so it tried to show the stream while we were streaming, and the computer didn't like that. It was like Inception, and everything screwed up.
Awesome.
So
that's great.
Let's see. There you go.
Okay, I don't see. Do you guys see?
I do.
Picture? Okay, yep. There must be an odd connection with Kurt and I, because I don't see it. But I took a poll today because the whole reason why I wanted to do this show was I feel like there is a correlation between people who are really into space, people who work for NASA, and people who game. And it was, since I can't see the picture, I have to pull it up really quick. Give me a second here. I think it was 68% said that they game and love space. And Kurt, what was the other?
30% for I just love space, and 3% that I just game.
Okay.
So yes, that does.
So
100%.
101.
Okay, so so it's a high number. There was 37 people who voted, and that is a high number of people who love space and game. It seems like everybody on the panel loves space, and we all love to game, and we've been gaming since we were little. So I just thought it was kind of interesting. And that's why I wanted to do the show on gaming, and it ended up being a 2-hour show.
Yeah, I think a lot of people. About it. Yeah, a lot of people have really stuck around. We've had probably more consistent viewers on this show than any of the others. Even it's 12:30 East Coast, and we still have 9 concurrent users, which I know may not sound like a lot to some people, but for us, we've been very consistent with this episode.
We might have to do more gaming ones.
Definitely.
So I know James is going to want to talk about Legion with me that first week.
Yeah, I mean,
so
I'd love to revisit some of this content in the future, and post Overwatch, post Warcraft movie, post Legion launch. I think there's some good opportunity for discussion there.
I absolutely do too. So let us know what you guys want to see as well. If there's anything else that you would like us to talk about that is kind of in the same genre, maybe we can have a tech show. It doesn't always have to just be space.
Retro gaming.
Yes, retro
Yes.
gaming. I was surprised you didn't sit there and play it.
Well, I didn't want to be rude.
Oh.
I did
right.
sneak in some asteroids. So
So I do want to thank everybody. I want to thank everybody on the panel that was here. We are going to be doing this again. We'll probably end up doing a tech show. I'm sure we'll have an update on Think if James hasn't electrocuted himself or, because it is eyes all...
vibed myself into a permanent coma. I'm really sleepy right now, guys.
Okay. All right. So I am still going to sign off how I always sign off. I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank the panel and our special guests for taking time out of their busy evenings and joining us. And as always, go out, look up, and discover. Thanks, everybody.